5 focuses on medical expenses not covered by the plan. Is that correct?
Correct.
Question 6 focuses on not only medical, but focuses on vision and dental also, does it not?
Yes, that's anything out of the.
Okay.
Vision and dental are covered by the plan.
Yes.
So after the specific amount of money that members indicated they had spent out of pocket on medical and vision and dental, what was the next question?
Do you feel there was an adequate avenue for advancement in your career with the DOC?
Okay. And what were the percentages there?
Percentage was 57, you said yes.
All right. And then question, or number 8, there's a little different spin on it. What was the question here?
Since your date of hire, have you been promoted from the same survey?
Okay.
3,000.
Stop. And now we're going to have testimony about areas for advancement. But as a CO1, what's the only area to advance to from the CO1 position?
When you're a CO1, your normal advancement would be to a sergeant. And as you heard me read the numbers of how many sergeants there are at each institution, you can see the number dwindles for those number of positions.
Okay. And then what would be the next question that was asked in the survey?
As an employee of the DOC, how would you rate the DOC's concern for your well-being? And 48% were somewhat.
Okay. And then what was good? What percentage is that?
The good was 20%, the great was 1%, non-existent was 31%.
And what was the next question, the final question asked of the bargaining unit?
As an employee of the DOC, you feel to what degree of personal satisfaction with your job? This was a very important question.
Why?
Because how you feel about your job and how you feel about the work environment you're in is very important in keeping those people on the job and doing the best job possible. That was 47%.
Before you get to that next slide, we're going to take a 10-minute break.
Okay.
And we're going to start back here promptly at 11:15. And I appreciate it if you don't make it back in the room by the time we start. Just come back quietly. Thank you. Mr. Pinto, second.
Sure. We just got done with the last survey question, and we talked about how you formulated the core issues of the PSCOA. Let's now, and for purposes of the panel, I want to turn Mr. Pinto's attention now to the proposals, which are in proposal book number 1. It would be the second tab, and it indicates issues in dispute, PSCOA. So now we have the proposals that were submitted to the Commonwealth in front of you. Let's talk about what the first issue is. What is the first issue?
The first issue is the term, 1 year.
Okay. And why is the PSCOA looking for a one-year contract?
Oh, 1 year, the economy is the way it is, okay? It's not gonna be this way forever. So 1 year to get through this bad time.
Okay. And your second proposal deals with wages, and that is broken into 4 parts.
Correct.
What are we looking to do first with wages?
Increase existing wage scale across the board by 4%.
And would that be in all the classifications?
Yes, everybody.
So we'd start with the lowest classes is 29,
Yes,
and the highest class is
37.
okay. And what's the next proposal?
The next one is to combine the existing shift differential to a 4% of the appropriate hourly rate, or $1 per hour, whichever is higher.
Okay. Now,
What's it at right now?
It's at 90 and $1.
So 90 cents for, I'll call the afternoon shift, or PM shift.
No, it's 90 cents for the midnight shift and
Oh.
$1 for the afternoon shift.
Okay, I understand.
in the shift differential, and we'll address that in more detail later in our presentation, has the shift differential changed in recent years?
It has been that since, that differential has been there since 1998, I think it was.
So the shift differential has been the same since 1998.
Yes.
So the percentage of, compared to hourly rate, has decreased over the last 13 years.
Correct.
And the next subsection of wages, what would that be?
This is to establish a 4% increase of base pay upon the 10th anniversary of an employment with a matching first class and master at 20th year designation on the job.
Okay. And what would the purpose of this proposal be? What issues are we trying to?
Well, it serves a number of issues. The first is it gives a CO, or anybody for that fact, a reason to stay on the job. When you're on a block and you're a CO, you tell an inmate something, and right away he wants to run to a sergeant. The strike means something to the inmates. So by designating somebody that has 10 years or 20 years with a chevron on their uniform, it also gives them that respect with the inmates as well. They listen better to that response.
So to some degree, the classification, one of the justifications would be that it helps in your day-to-day job operations as a CO?
Correct.
And we talked earlier about CO1s and CO2s and the limited number of sergeant positions. Does this proposal have anything to do with the limited amount of sergeant positions?
Correct. It gives the people another place to work towards, as opposed to just the sergeant's spot, or once you're a sergeant, then you're on a place to go as a lieutenant. So it gives them another avenue.
And that's and I guess that's a function of 195 itself, that you can only have rank and file. So you have lead workers, and then you have basically everybody else. Is there any, what is the top pay scale?
37.
And who is that?
That would be our sergeants and our trade instructors.
Okay. So even if you were a sergeant and you wanted to become a trade instructor, I guess we'll hear some testimony about that later on. There's no place else to go from there?
No, it's just a lateral move.
Okay.
And in keeping with the CO2, if you get a promotion above the CO2, you promote out of the bargaining unit.
Correct.
And lieutenants would be the next position?
Correct.
And captains and majors, correct?
Correct.
If you take, for example, and not that the facility that you've experienced working at, or any SCI for that matter, are there a substantial number of lieutenants, captains, and majors?
No, the higher up you go, the less the number. Obviously.
Right. So, you touched upon this earlier. The first class and master class also, the 10 and 20-year designation. Did PSCOA formulate a reason why it was important to use those years? Is there a high turnover rate? What was the basis for having 10 and 20 years?
Well, the idea with 10 and 20 is to keep people on the job and something to work for, as opposed to just being on a dead end and saying, okay, I've had enough, I'm out of here.
Now, the next category would be, in wages, would be subsection D, and what was the proposal there?
That is to reinstate the boss longevity step improvement.
Okay. Now, we heard Gary Lightman talk about the lost longevity step in his opening statement, but could you, what happened, how did this bargaining unit lose a longevity step?
Well, as Gary said, there was a missed filing deadline, and that the filing deadline, once the former attorney missed the deadline, then you couldn't arbitrate. We certainly couldn't reach any agreement, so we went a year without anything until we could arbitrate.
So for 1 year, there was a status quo on, so there was no there was no general wage increase.
Nope.
There was no movement on longevity,
Nope.
and it was because of a deadline that was missed under Act 195.
Correct.
So now the 10,000 plus bargaining unit members are suffering for the last how many years because of this?
That was 2000.
Okay.